Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jenna Green. I'm the Deputy Texas State Coordinator for Campus Scope Project. I've had the pleasure of working with the Houston Youth Voters Conference organizing team for the last 8 weeks on this conference. I'm really excited about what we have planned for you guys today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Max, one of our amazing, awesome organizers.
My name is Max Fisher. I'm a senior at Energy Institute High School, and I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to thank Haley Early College High School for being here. You guys are awesome. The student organizers, so Malak, Adrian, Josh, thank you all for working for the project. Thank you for doing so much for us. We could not have done this without them. And also thank you UHD for letting us use their amazing services. Reminder, just make sure you have your name tags on, and the color of your name tag will correspond to a group that you're going to later. So just keep that in mind. And if you have any issues with that, please come talk to me or Jenna or anyone in front. This is a student-led effort, and we really appreciate you all being here. And we hope you enjoy what we have to share. Thanks. And then we're going to have Rahila come up to do the anthem.
Good morning. Good morning. Folks, my name is Rahila and I'm honored to be conducting today's land and labor acknowledgement. Much of the work that we do in the current United States is happening on the backs of traumas and genocide of Native people and people of color. And that's why it's so important for us to open today's program with this acknowledgement. This weekend, we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Koa Wheeltakan, Karankawa, Sana, and Atacapa people. We also acknowledge the legacy of slavery in our region and the enslaved African people whose labor was exploited for generations to help establish the economy of our region and the United States, specifically the production and harvest of surplus crops and land cultivation. We offer our gratitude to these peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. At Campus Vote Project, we are working to better serve our Native students. For the past 2 years, we have had students serving on our student advisory board who focus on supporting and learning more about political participation amongst Native students. This year, we also have students that represent and advocate for and organize around the needs of Black students, API students, and Latina students, as well as students that are attending community colleges and HBCU. So if you would like to learn more information about these efforts, please reach out to the CBP team. Thank you so much.
So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to have our keynote speaker. So I guess I'll our keynote speaker, and I'm going to give a little background on it before we get into the speech. So Edgar joined the ACLU of Texas in 2016 as a senior staff attorney, and he defended civil rights and civil liberties of ACLU clients in high-impact litigation in state and federal courts. His practice is mainly focused on immigrants' rights, voting rights, and government accountability. And prior to joining the ACLU, Edgar was a commercial litigator in private practice, managing a diverse docket of complex, multi-party lawsuits in state and federal courts throughout Texas. After an accomplished career in the private sector, where he's recognized as one of Houston's 40 under 40 by the Houston Business Journal, Edgar pursued the good fight to seek justice and equality for the most vulnerable in society. In his first year, Edgar helped the ACLU of Texas secure significant victories for civil rights, including 2 record-breaking settlements against the federal government that resulted in changes to immigration enforcement policies at the border. Edgar graduated cum laude from Harvard University with a JD in philosophy, and he received his JD from the University of Houston Law Center. He also completed postgraduate courses in existential psychology and French at Rice University, and he's fluent in Spanish. We'd love to welcome Edgar up as our keynote.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here with the next generation of leaders from the Houston area. I want to share a little bit about my personal story on civic engagement, and also to tell you why it's important in this critical time in our country. I was 15 years old when I first voted for president. It was 1992. Bill Clinton was running against George H.W. Bush. You might be wondering, wait, how did you vote at 15? Well, actually, it was my mom that was voting, but I was accompanying her into the voting booth as her interpreter. My mom's English was not very good. It was pretty limited. So we went together into the voting booth, and we got in line at the nearest polling location at the fire station in Pasadena, Texas, just a few blocks from my house. I vividly remember the excitement that we both shared for voting. This was my mom's first time voting. She had just become a U.S. citizen. And even though I wasn't actually voting, I felt like I was doing a real part in the process just by helping my mom vote. You see, it had been a long journey for my mom, from her humble roots to casting a ballot for an American president. My parents were both immigrants from Mexico who came from very poor backgrounds. Like many families along the border, my mom and her family would travel to the American Midwest to pick vegetables as migrant farm workers. My mom was only a teenager when she worked alongside her family, harvesting seasonal crops across states like Ohio and Nebraska to help make ends meet. They traveled in my uncle's old pickup truck in a caravan with other Mexican-American families from South Texas. And it was in those long road trips through the Midwest that my mom dreamed of making a better life for her family in America. My dad had his own story. At 10 years old, economic hardships forced his family to lose their home, and they moved to a new town where my dad was forced to work in the streets selling newspapers and shining shoes to help make ends meet there. They had no electricity for the first few years, so actually it was my dad's earnings from selling newspapers and shining shoes that helped pay for the batteries of their only radio. At age 12, my dad went off to a pre-military boarding school that offered scholarships for kids. The following years were formative for my dad. The school shaped his political consciousness. He became aware of class distinctions simply by seeing those students who could go home on holidays and those who, sadly like him, had to stay back. But then came 1968. My dad graduated during a time of political repression in Mexico. Days before his 18th birthday, Mexican armed forces, with the backing of the US government, massacred hundreds of students who were peacefully marching in a section of Mexico City called Tlatelolco. They were protesting the 1968 Olympics. Mexican high school and college students had been calling for political freedoms and an end to authoritarian rule in Mexico. My dad's school was affiliated with one of the colleges whose students were members of the movement. So his school was targeted, and the federal government took away all scholarships and eliminated military training for fear that the students would turn against the government themselves. This forced the school to eventually shut down and end a pipeline of poor kids from the region to enter technical careers. The pain and injustice of the political repression he witnessed would inform my dad about the oppressive power of government and the importance of education. I was born in Pasadena, Texas. Anyone here from Pasadena? Woo! All right. Things were a lot different back then than they are now. Growing up in the 1980s as a person of color, it was hard to avoid the racial tensions in my hometown. At that time, Pasadena was the site of the state headquarters of the KKK. In fact, their meeting place was just blocks away from my house. Mexican-American families mostly lived in the poorer north side of Pasadena, while white families were moving away to the better resourced, cleaner neighborhoods on the south side of the city. My dad's efforts to teach me history often conflicted with the version of events that my school books had. That raised my curiosity and made me question my own sense of belonging and identity in America. My dad taught me about the American Civil Rights Movement through his love of sports. I learned about the courage of Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, and Roberto Clemente to overcome barriers. Black athletes became my first heroes, and I gravitated to the stories of the Black freedom movement, especially when my own school neglected to tell the stories of brown folks. Hip hop music gave me an avenue to connect with the shared experiences of marginalized Black urban youth. And that further shaped my own political sensibilities. In fact, I remember in 7th grade, asking my mom to buy me an Africa medallion to show my solidarity with the anti-apartheid movement, because I saw some of my favorite rappers wear it, and I also saw them talk about what was going on in South Africa. After I went home to learn more about apartheid, looking into an old encyclopedia that my parents bought at a garage sale, I went back to school the next day, proudly wearing my Africa medallion, despite my history teacher's facial confusion. When she asked why I wore it, I retorted simply, because I'm against apartheid, miss. At 12 years old, I was already a budding racial justice activist. By the time I got to high school, I knew that getting a higher education was the means for me to escape poor existence. And it was also a way for me to make a positive impact in society. Despite the misguided advice or apathy of school counselors who just assumed that brown kids from Pasadena would end up working in refineries, I quietly set a goal to myself to get into a top school, so I dug into my books. By the start of my senior year, I was the #1 ranked student in Pasadena, and in December of my senior year, I got a letter from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I had just been admitted to the class of 1999 at Harvard. Never parents' wildest dreams did they ever imagine that their firstborn would get into one of the most prestigious universities in the world. And inspired by lawyers like Mahatma Gandhi, Benito Juarez, and Thurgood Marshall, I decided to go to law school, and I came here to the University of Houston to start a legal career. Fast forward to today, I now am the senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Texas. The American Civil Liberties Union is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that fights in the courts, in the legislatures, in the school boards, and in the streets to protect and defend the civil rights and civil liberties of all persons in this country. For the last 100 years, we've been involved in some of the biggest civil rights battles. But today, I want to tell you about some of the battles that are yet to come, especially when it comes to the assault on our voting rights. Voting has often been described as the cornerstone of our democracy and the fundamental right upon which all other rights rest. Voting gives each citizen a voice in the democratic processes that shape our society, so that we can truly have a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And let me just remind you, when the Constitution talks about the people, who is it talking to? Who is it talking about? Yeah, it's talking about we, the people. And the ACLU has fought hard to protect our rights against voter suppression in our state, especially because our state has a long, dark history of voter suppression. Just 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation in 1866, our state instituted the Texas Black Codes, which prohibited African Americans from serving on juries, holding public office, or voting. The 15th Amendment in 1870 made it illegal to deny people of color the right to vote. But yet, 6 years later, the Texas Constitution instituted poll taxes. The poll tax was used as a tool to keep African Americans and Mexican Americans away from voting. White men's organizations and local election officials frequently used the accusations of fraud to support poll taxes, even when there were no cases of fraud in their counties. Sound familiar? During the Jim Crow era, violence and intimidation against African American voters kept many of them away from the polls. Throughout the 20th century, state and local police threatened Black and brown folks with criminal penalties and arrest simply for voting. In 1919, for example, a state law made it a crime for local election officials to provide aid in any language other than English in a targeted effort to keep Mexican Americans who only spoke Spanish from voting. Then came the 1965 Voting Rights Act, a landmark federal law that prohibited racial discrimination in voting. It required states like Texas to get federal approval before implementing changes to voting systems or voting rules to ensure that they weren't discriminatory. But then in 2013, not that long ago, the US Supreme Court, in the case of Shelby County versus Holder, removed that pre-clearance requirement and allowed states to implement changes to their voting systems without getting federal approval. This opened the gates to rampant voter suppression that we're still fighting today. Texas has since engaged in racial gerrymandering, which is the manipulation of electoral boundaries in districts to benefit a certain group of people. And we're still fighting that today. Texas now has the strictest voter ID laws in the country, and it still has the most restrictive requirements for registration to vote. Criminal penalties have also increased under the Texas Election Code. Since 2015, 72% of the prosecutions by the Texas Attorney General's office targeted Black and brown Texans, like our client, Crystal Mason. And now we're fighting against Senate Bill 1, a voter suppression law that takes particular aim at people with disabilities and people of color. And especially people with limited English proficiency, who in Texas happen to be largely voters of color. Had my mom tried to vote today, she would have had a much harder time voting than she would have in 1992. So all this begs the question, why is the state so intent on making it harder for us to vote? Well, let's look at what the 2020 census tells us. The census data showed that people of color accounted for 95% of Texas population increase this past decade. Texas grew faster than any other state and is now one of the most racially and ethnically diverse in the country. Simply put, our state's changing demographics are a threat to the current power establishment. Those in power want to maintain control over the shaping of our society. So understanding civics is about learning to have a say and protecting our freedom to participate in our society. At the end of the day, civics is about making sense about how we all belong in America. So I ask, are we ready to stand up to have a say in shaping our democracy? I know I am. Yeah. And if you agree with me, I want to hear you say, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Are you prepared to push back when they chip away at our most fundamental rights? Yes, I am. Are you ready to help lift the voices of others who are not often heard? Yes, I am. Are you prepared to fight for a more humane and just society for all people? Yes, I am. Well, here's 10 ways you can help. Register to vote if you're eligible. Look into becoming a deputy voter registrar and register your friends. Make a plan to vote and take your friends with you. Know your rights. To learn more, you can go to the ACLU of Texas website at aclutx.org. Support or volunteer for local civic and community organizations. You saw many of them out there this morning. They each need support and we can all play our part. Train to be a poll monitor. You don't have to be 18 to be a poll monitor, but we need you out there. Share the election protection hotline number, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Not that hard to remember. It's 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Lawyers like me are on the other side answering questions for voters, concerns about stuff. If you see something, say something. Practice empathy. Learn more about the other people around in our communities. We can all find shared values and learn from each other. Focus on your education as the most powerful weapon. And finally, fight hard, but take care of yourself. The fight for justice is as perennial as the grass, and we need you in these battles for the long haul. So please join me in creating a more vibrant and inclusive America where all voices are heard and all people belong. We need you more than ever. A better world is possible, and you hold the keys to making it happen. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucky Deheli. I'm a junior at American High School, and thank you for that amazing speech from Mr. Salazar. Next is Greg Norwood. Greg is the Senate Organizing Manager for Young Invincibles, a policy research and advocacy group committed to elevating the voices and stories of young adults while creating economic opportunity for 8 to 34-year-olds. In this role, he manages aggressive organizing, consumer education, and young adult engagement work across the state of Texas. Greg is a visionary leader, passionate organizer, and engaging facilitator. In his free time, he was watching documentaries, scrolling Zillow, eating good food, and traveling. Please welcome Greg Norwood.
Anybody else like to scroll Zillow and you're not alone?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, anybody said $100,000 house. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but whatever, you know. Let me know. Does this move? Yes, yes, great. Well, hello. What up? How y'all doing? Good, y'all look good, Okay, first of all, I'm a clapper, so just clap. Yeah. So I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Greg. I'm the Summer Organizing Manager for Young Invincibles. We're a policy research and advocacy group working to elevate the voices of young adults in the political process while creating economic opportunity for people 18 to 34 years old. I know some of y'all are under 18, but you're going to be 18 very soon, so I'm hollering when we get there. First of all, let's do a hand clap to our keynote. Yeah. I don't understand the amount of how hard he works to ensure that we have the basic human right to vote. So yes, thank you for your work. Really, it's really amazing. Okay, let's get started. Oh, so I'm Greg. These are the guests. This is Jasmine, Miriam, and Marissa. Give me a hand clap. Yeah. So Jasmine is our full-time outreach specialist, and she's fantastic what she does. And then we have 2 advocates. So if you are 18 to 34 and you're looking for internship, fellowship, holla at me. We are looking for some people in the spring. There's not a whole lot of criteria, honestly. I mean, if you're passionate, if you're ready to make change, just come see me and we'll make it happen. Okay. So I want to get started right away because we got a jam-packed agenda, and I want us to talk, and I want us to be engaged. And so the very first thing we want to do is what we call chair power exercise. I'm gonna need this chair right here. So can I get 4 volunteers? And if you don't volunteer, I will volunteer. 4 volunteers. What is this brother? What is he here? Okay, so we're looking at this. Where do you think the power lies in this configuration? So which chair has the most power? The guy. Okay, why do you say the guy? Oh, did I put you on the spot? I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. So she said, usually the man in the situation has the most power. Thank you for sharing. So we're talking about social power here, which is very important. Okay. I heard some other stuff. Yes. Madeline. Okay. Y'all know each other? How cute. I love it. Okay, great. Okay, Madeline. Why do you say that? Ah, that's a really good point. Really good point. Anybody else? Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. That's the two people are fine. Okay, let's configure it another way. Okay. With this configuration, which chair looks like it has the most power? The one forward. Who said that? Where you at? Expose yourself. Why? Why did we say the one forward? Okay. I love that. I heard some other whispers. Do it back. Why do you think? Ah, over her. Okay. Okay. I love that. What about you? What do you think? Which one got more power? Person in the front. Why do you think that? Yeah. That's so cool. Thank y'all for sharing. Okay, let's do one more configuration. Which chair has most power? Everyone. Why do you say that? Okay. The equally positioned, so equally powerful. Okay. What about you? What do you think? Okay, I love that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, the person in the center is usually the one, no matter what. Okay. That's so cool. Okay, clap for yourself. Yeah. Thank you. Give them a shirt, please. So y'all communicate amongst yourselves. Get a shirt. Yeah. Do you not want a shirt? You say, I don't want a shirt. I don't want a shirt. Where's my check? Okay. That's so cool. And BTW, these shirts are here for a reason. I kind of forgot. So, you want to know how you get a shirt? Participate. You see what I'm saying? That's so cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It says Generation Vax. If you aren't vaccinated, give it to your mom. Okay. Because she's probably vaccinated. All right. Okay, so why do we do this? So when we're thinking about power, there are three kind of relationships, experiences that we have with power. It is power over, right? Power within, and power with others. Power over, power with others, power within. Oftentimes, power over is how we identify and think about power, right? It is this ability to get someone to do something against their will. That's the power over. And this can be through rewards, punishment, manipulation, forcing someone to do something, whatever. And so that's how we traditionally think about power. Right? And so when we had the chair kind of like this, people said, oh, the person in front looks like the power. And this is because they have this perceived power over the people in the back. And so there is this traditional understanding of power connected to that, okay? Then we have power with others. This is the power, this is the ability to influence and take action based on uniting with others, okay? And that power comes from community, collaboration, cooperation, that. Then we've got the power from within, right? The ability to influence and take action based on intention, clarity, vision, or charisma. And so I want to start, and eventually we're going to get to power with us, because the goal is for us to unite with each other and create an equitable, inclusive society that allows everybody, the Black and brown people, everybody to vote. That's the goal. Is that the goal? Yeah. Is that the goal? Yes. That's the goal. But we have to first kind of start ourselves. I'm really loud, and this mic, it's probably not helping. So I'm going to set it to the side because I think I'm here. But yeah, so that we have to start with power within ourselves, right? And so this configuration with all these chairs are straight away, you said it right, everybody has the power, right? You have power within yourself to make change you want. And so before we call the meetings and before we do all the things, we have to first root ourselves in our own individual. You have the power to make it. Now you take your power, right? You connect somebody with some more power, and then y'all got something going on. But if you don't understand your own power, okay? So it's really important to understand this about organizing, right? Because organizing is about relationships, but it's about understanding your ability individually to make change. So if you understand that, you can encourage and pull it out of other people who make it. It's very important. So get rid of the power within, but then, of course, once we get rid of the power within, we want to deal with power with others. And so I want to ask a couple guiding questions. Let me take my time. Okay, I'm going to ask a couple guiding questions. And this one, my teacher people are going to be really, really helpful. So how might we use power to get folks to do what we think is appropriate as it relates to civic engagement? Okay. How might we use our understanding of power, not power over, but we want power within and then power with others. So how do we use that definition of power to get officials to shift on some things that relates to civic engagement? Yes.
Forming coalitions.
Forming coalitions, yes. Get this person a shirt, please. Forming coalitions, 100%. We do a lot of that in elementary. Okay. What about anyone else? What about anybody else? What about anybody here? But anybody over here? How might we get officials, use our power to get officials to do what we do? Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I won't be able to top that, but by using your voice.
Using your voice. Yes. And I'm telling you, your voice. Listen, I'm trying to tell you, it's something. So use that thing. You know, because they work real hard to silence it. You know, so be as loud as you can. You don't need no mic. I got a big mouth. You know what I'm saying? I use it. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? How do we use power? Yes.
By educating others and like making sure that everyone else is also informed.
Correct. Correct. I love that. Power with others. Second six. So how can we use power with others to unify around an issue such as civic engagement? So we already kind of highlighted on this. We talked about coalition building. We talked about educating folk. You know, and so how do we, you know, maybe a couple more. How do we use power with others to around this issue of civic engagement to kind of change the landscape of that? How can you use power within your own institutions, your own schools and or colleges to shift the narrative as it relates to civic engagement? Yes. Taking action. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? All the things, right? Yeah. Okay. I got you. Yeah. I follow. Yeah. 100%. We giving away some t-shirts, giving away some t-shirts. Oh, y'all like the t-shirts? Y'all like them? Yeah. Okay. How can we use power within the civic engagement space? Now, there's one easy answer. How can we use power within the civic engagement space? You, because I really like those jackets. What about you? No, stand up. Stand up. How do you use power within the civic engagement? Testimonial, so storytelling, 100%, 100%. There's one thing that we can do to harness our power. Oh, thank you. Yes, say it. Oh, thank you. Get this girl shirt. Yeah. It's so cool that you vote, even if you cannot vote for whatever reason, right? It may be undocumented or you have some past, your papers as we speak, so we say, right? Even if you can vote, you have the power to encourage and equip people to vote. So we go on. Okay, so I'm gonna transition. I got one more question, but I'm gonna transition because I'm really on time. So understanding power and how to use it is critical, but to truly maximize that power, we have to root ourselves in our particular roles within each movement, right? So each of us has a space, a role in our movements, right? In this case, it is connected to the movement, right? So we end our time. I'm backing out of this thing. I wish I had more time, but I'm backing out. We're not time together discussing what the different roles are. We need to identify what we think our role is in this work. So I'm going to read off a couple, and I want you to think about for a second where you fit in. Y'all can sit on a chair if you want to, you don't stand, or keep standing. Thank you, Crickets. Okay. So we have frontline responders. So frontline responders quickly and ably transition into rapid response mode, and which include organizing resources, networks, messages. Yeah. So those are people you call like, hey, listen, John just shot JoJo, and we need you to show up. They'd be like, oh, wait, you know, that's easy. Okay. Then you got those people. Then you have the healers, right? Healers tend to the individual and intergenerational traumas of white supremacy, racism, colonialism, capitalism, patriarchy, all that stuff. And so that is where we get those people that are like, you know, let's sit in it, let's feel it, let's breathe through it. You know, you get those people, which are very important to the work. Okay. That's what you do?
Tell people hydrate.
Hydrate, 100%. Hydrate. Don't go to that protest. You said, no, you won last night. Go to sleep. So very important. Okay, storytellers or artists, right? These people bind the past and the present, channeling the histories and experiences of our ancestors to shed light on what is possible today. Very important people. So we talked about storytelling. My guy said storytelling, and it really is the ability to tell us where we come from, where we are, where we're going. Really important, really important. Then we got the bridge builders. Okay, I hope you're keeping up, because I want you to identify which one you are. So we got the bridge builders. Bridge builders can work across divisions with patience and compassion. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a bridge builder. I love people, but you know, some people I don't want to really build a bridge. You know what I'm saying? But there are other people who are really good at that, and that's what they do. They're good at that. So disruptors. Disruptors speak up and take action, especially when it is uncomfortable, risky. Caregivers provide nourishment to organizers, exude concern, love, and create a community of care. Really important. Visionaries, simply said, visionaries provide, have the ability to find, articulate, and reconnect us to our North Star, even when we cannot clearly see the sky. So I would actually guess that our keynote speaker highly visionary, right? Able to connect to make sure that we don't ever lose sight of what we're really trying to do. Like we're really trying to get to a place of equitable, inclusive access to civic engagement to vote. Right. And so I think as that lead attorney, he always keeps us straight and narrow, even when we want to go burn buildings down. And then builders actively develop the ideas, the structure, and the scaffolding for our organization and movement. Scaffolding just means they just build infrastructure, so to speak. They build the infrastructure for our movement. So take a minute, think about all those. Think about all those. And so let's ask you guys a question with you. So how these kind of questions I think will help us understand how do I identify my role? How do I identify my role in a social change ecosystem? Right? So here's the first question you ask yourself. What role do I feel comfortable and natural playing and why? And what roles make me come alive and why? Are there any differences between these two for me to explore? Huge question. So it's like a two-part question, three-part question, so to speak. First part is, which role do you feel comfortable doing? Right. Which role, I think, listen, let me make sure I know the questions. So the first question is, which role do you feel comfortable doing? Which role makes you come alive? So which one makes you go like, yeah, I'm that guy? And are there differences between the two? So let me give you an example. I feel very comfortable as a builder. In my role, I build our organizing structure across the state of Texas. I can do that. And I'm okay. I do that, but I'm pretty good. But I feel alive as a disruptor. Oh, put a bullhorn in my hand, and you got somebody, you know what I'm saying? And so that is what I mean. And so there is a difference. There's a difference because I understand as a builder, I understand my responsibility is different as a disruptor. My disruptor is, as a disruptor, my responsibility is to bring attention to, bring awareness to. As a builder, my role is to ensure there's infrastructure. And when it's time to explode, we are ready to go. Because you can be all loud and cute all you want to, but if there ain't no infrastructure there, when it's time to go, if we can't go, can't go. So my role is to make sure that we're organized, that we're clear about our roles, that we're connected to the goal. So that's an example of how we do it. So I'm gonna ask somebody else to go through that. Go through that process. Yes. Okay.
And I think first off, for the best being a builder, being active and
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
I like giving information to students and my fellow peers about some of the stuff that are going on in school, whether it's an activities and alpha, all that stuff. But in the future, I definitely want to be a builder financially. I want to give, hopefully be so successful that I could give money support like this, so there is no financial barriers.
Yes. Thank you. And listen, I have my own thoughts about capitalism and all that stuff. Probably not. We talk about it. But listen, the unfortunate reality is money makes the world go round. And it can either shift one way or shift another. So thank you for sharing. It's really important. And I think it's organized to lose sight of that. Not like, wealth building is necessary because somebody got to fund this stuff. So thank you. Okay, let me get one more. Yes.
For me, I like to include charts and meeting with nutrition girls, help you organize, kind of like people being nervous. However, later in the future, I realized that I like to be more behind the scenes, watch things like grow, like just help behind.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. That's so cool. That's why I hope I'll throw these down. I have a couple of questions, but I really want you to think about that question. Like, what am I good at? What do I do? What do I do well? Get in there, do it. Find somebody find some place that's doing it already. Okay, then this area, how can I stretch? Ooh, that was real country. How can I stretch myself? And where can I take bolder risks, especially if I hold different forms of privilege? What do I need to learn more about before I do that? And who can teach me how to do that? So for me, stretch visionary. That's stretch for me because I'm a builder, but I build kind of for that. When it's time to pop, you're ready to pop, you know. And so that visionary aspect of I don't really have it. That's a stretch for me. That's a stretch for me. But I don't know how to really connect that to the previous question. But the kind of third part of that question is who can teach me how to do that? And I think that my boss, the illustrious Aurora Harris, give her a hand. Woo! Oh, I'm trying to tell you, she boss, but she is a visionary. Visionary. She just has this ability to see way past where we are. And so I can learn, and I do learn how to be a visionary for her. I put in my bio, I'm a visionary leader. That just sounds cute. I don't know. But whatever. That's being straight up. Okay, so we got roughly 4 minutes, which is crazy. So let's think about this. Which one stretches you? Stretch. So like makes you a little uncomfortable. Think about that way. Yes. Okay, we'll come here. Yeah.
I'm trying to work on being like a better builder.
Okay.
Just because it's kind of hard to do all the logistics of it. So that's kind of something that really stretches me out a lot. What you were asking?
Yeah, no, 100%. Thank you for sharing. Matt.
I think it's a big stretch for me to be a disruptor. I have a lot of privilege, and I would like to use it for everyone. And so like being less or just as much of a visionary or builder, but also like being able to do crazy stuff sometimes. Like
Yeah. I love that. But I use it. Who got a shirt? Raise your hand if you ain't got no shirt. Don't lie to me. Who ain't got no shirt? Okay, you ain't got no shirt. Everybody else got a shirt? I know some of y'all right here ain't got no shirt. Y'all don't got no shirt. You got one? Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna do. Okay, great. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, who's my support system? Who's your support system? In the word, who do you connect to? What's your support? Woo! Okay, who is your support system? So when you're in the movement, who do you connect to? Who brings you back to earth? Just finish. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've heard it say you can live without family, but you can live without friends. So that's important. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I've heard it say. Okay. I saw some other hands. Close that hand. Yes. Okay, we gotta keep moving. I got 1 minute, so I'm actually gonna close out. I got another question. How can my self-identified role help advance the movement regarding civic engagement? Think about that. That's an introspective question. Think about that. And so, just shout out. Right? Give me a word. Okay, hold on. So, if you have any questions, come holler. Okay, come holler if you have any questions about this. But just shout it out. Give me a word or a moment where it's like what was that? Eureka. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what that means. I mean, like I have moments from the presentation. I'm sorry, yes. So like from presentation, it was like a disruptor. Okay. Builder. Okay, I love that. Give me another one on action. Give me a word. What are you gonna do? Use your voice. Thank you. Bold. Bold. Yeah. Okay. That is my time. It's 10:58. I gotta go. I wish I could stay all weekend. I really do. But I gotta go. It is my birthday. So this was a great day, a great way to spend at least part of it. Keep on fighting, keep on building, keep on disrupting, keep on being visionaries, keep on doing all that stuff. And when you get 18, I'll holler at me because I got the time. Great.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. All right, well All right, well, thank you so much, Greg. That was absolutely incredible. We're gonna take a quick 10-minute break if you want to stretch your legs, get some water, use the restroom, and then we'll meet back there around 11:10. All right, sound good? That was so good. Happy birthday.
And they don't understand it. I don't understand. Yes, correct. Well, yeah, no job. You're talking about students come here automatically. And so what I'm trying to say about there's a reason for it. And it's not always financial, but it's to your point. I go to talk to just and I'm trying to track it. Then it's like, no, it's like no, and it this is actually You're gonna get to.
All right, if everybody wants to take their seats. All right, thank y'all so much. Hopefully you got to stretch and get some water and get some fresh air. It is my pleasure to introduce one of my best friends. Cassie Pidio is the Curriculum and Research Manager for Campus Vote Project. She's a Communication Studies PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Austin, where she studies the intersection of political communication and higher education. For 5 years, Cassie was the graduate program coordinator for Texas Votes. During that time, the organization registered nearly 20,000 students to vote in the university to receive a national recognition. Prior to her PhD, Cassie worked as a journalist and a high school teacher. She has a master's in communication, culture, and technology from Georgetown University and a bachelor's in communication from Indiana Tech. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Cassie.
I am in real life. I mean, what you really need to know about me is I've got 3 cats, a dog, and soon a baby, and a very cool spouse. I'm kind of obsessed with voting and with current college students. And like fundamentally, I think that's a thing that many of us probably have in common. Also, I mean, I know we haven't really talked about high school since here too. I love my juniors and seniors. I taught high school English. So y'all were my jam. Usually, sometimes, you know, teachers and students don't always vibe. So I was supposed to be joined today by Sarah, who is actually a senior at UT Austin, who I had the pleasure of getting to know when she was a freshman. She's now the student advisory board president for Campus Vote Project. Unfortunately, she's ill today, so she couldn't make it. We fully intended to have a student up here with me. And so what I'm going to talk to you today about is campus planning. We're in a workshop, or not campus planning. Can you tell I just got off the call where I was talking about coalition building of the Democracy Fellows? So we're actually talking about event planning. Out of curiosity, did anybody here do National Voter Registration Day events? Yes, love to see it. So just gets me into the right mindset. So I wanted to talk today about planning events around the actual turnout of voting. So either for early voting or for election day. And there are a lot of things we need to think about when we're event planning, and a lot of things that I want everyone to keep in mind when we're doing event planning. So ignoring National Voter Registration Day, how many of you have just put on an event before? Cool, some more hands. I mean, where are my voting conference people? Do you guys put on an event right now? Yeah. Okay. So the reason I bring this up is because I think that what we have here, some of this is going to be applicable to all kinds of events. Some of this is going to be very applicable to voting and election day. And so I'm hoping this is going to work well for both our high schoolers and our college students today. And so you all should have this handy dandy worksheet that I made for y'all to help us go through it. And so when we're planning an event, there are a couple of different things you want to keep in mind. So the first question is, are we doing this event virtually or are we doing this event in person? So great. Do we have access to Zoom? Is my event space something that's accessible for everyone, right? If it's out on grass, it might be really hard for someone on crutches to access that space. If you're hosting something on Zoom, make sure you have closed captioning enabled so that anybody can actually participate in what you're doing. And these are kind of the little things that kind of sneak up on you when you're event planning. But ultimately, we have to figure out what we're planning for. So collectively as a group, we'll do some of this together and we'll do some of this separately. If we were planning an early voting or election day event, what are we trying to accomplish? What do we want to happen if we're doing an event for early voting or election day?
More voting.
Yes, thank you. More voting. So the actual act of voting is one of the things, right? For those who are eligible and can turn out to vote. Not everyone is eligible, not everyone can turn out to vote. What else can we be thinking about? What can those people be doing?
Spread the word.
Yes, yes. How can our friends who can't actually participate in the election spread the word for us?
They could direct for websites, they have like different days about voting. Sorry.
I was saying that, the way people who are eligible to vote, they can help others who are by directing them to important websites where it has like important dates, like for instance, October 11th is the last day to register to vote. But also websites where people can get their IDs. I think it was one of the organizations where they actually help people get their IDs. They can do that. Or actually websites that show them if they're eligible to vote, if they are registered to vote, and yeah, I'm just babbling out here.
But you are amazing, which is why I got you right here. Thank you.
I think it's important that we recognize that we live in a digital age. So posting stuff on social media is very important, especially my campus is here at UHD, and something we're kind of lacking in, but we've been improving since the semester is being active on social media, even if you're not a board member, advocating for events like this and advocating for each other's events, even if you're not part of it.
As one of our democracy fellows. And you may have gone to the coalition building. Did you do coalition building stuff with me this week?
No, I didn't, but I was part of the Souls Volunteer events for, yeah, I was
Got
there.
you, got you. Yeah, we got it. I'm like, you're saying things I say a lot. I know this. So as we're thinking about both spreading awareness and we're also thinking about helping people literally get out to vote, right? Those are kind of two different things. And so I wanted to give you guys some examples before we went into the actual planning of some groups that do this work or some ways that different campuses and different schools have done this. So I think the first thing we want to think about is where is your closest polling location? And so that matters a lot. In Harris County, you guys have all, every polling location is actually an election center, which means that you don't have to vote at your precinct on election day, which is really good information to have. Outside of Harris County, that's not always the case. So make sure you're always checking on your specific county's rules. That's my caveat. So think about where your closest polling location is. A lot of elementary schools have polling locations. Many of our campuses have polling locations. How do we ensure students actually get there and have access to polling locations? So this work probably needed to start happening 8 months ago, but if it's something that you're interested in is advocating to get a polling location on a college campus or at a school near you, that's absolutely something that young people can do. So go talk to your county commissioners, they don't make that decision. But I would start talking early. It's frankly too late for that. Most locations are actually already scheduled now for early voting on election day. So that's like thing number one that can be part of that process that you can work on. Thing number two is physically getting people to the polls. So I know in the past, UHD actually did a march to the polls where they would walk to the polls for the election. I don't know, are you guys planning to do that this year? Do you know?
Yeah, they are.
Awesome, okay. So a march to the polls, physically getting people to their polling location if it is not right on campus. That is when we make sure people are actually getting to the vote, right? Because a lot of people like say they're gonna vote and then do they actually vote? No. When you have turnout of around mid-60s, that means not everyone's voting, right? So how are you helping people get there? Make it part of a tradition. So one of the things I think is really cool that we can really capitalize on when you have groups of people on high school and college campuses is creating traditions surrounding voting. On my campus at UC Austin, we have a couple different traditions. So one of our political groups on campus, it's one of our partisan groups, spends the night outside the polling location and basically camps out like some people used to do for the iPhone, and then votes immediately in the morning. That is their thing that they do as a group. That is their tradition around voting that they do together. My organization, Texas Votes, we are honestly a little bit more concerned about education. So we do like party. We often do a party during early voting, which I was going to have Sarah tell you all about, where there's like music and food, and we get a bunch of different groups together to get people out to early vote because we have an early voting polling location on our campus. Actually, we have two on our campus And so people are like, what's going on? And we're like, oh, we're celebrating voting. And then they're like, oh yeah, I can go vote. I'm like, yeah, go vote right now. Because on election day, the line is gonna be way too long, right? We don't wanna have to wait 3 or 4 hours, which is totally the case on my campus, even with 2 polling locations on election day. So promoting early voting through parties is a really fun and good way to start thinking about getting students out early voting, because we had over 80% of students in 2020 who early voted on our campus. So that's an incredibly valuable thing to have for your campus if you actually can do early voting. And then on election day, that's when we concentrate on awareness. So fun fact, Trader Joe's, you can buy like 2 dozen roses for $12 when you're on a tight budget like we are. And so from there, what we like to do is tie little strings with information about voting onto each rose and hand those roses out and ask people to take pictures of them and share them on their social media. So there's kind of like a physical fun thing that we do. We're not just giving roses to voters. By the way, that would be illegal. You can't just hand somebody something for voting. It's like paying for the vote. You can't do that. But what we can do is raise awareness. So our goal here is to raise awareness. And so sometimes we're just like, where's like the biggest football player on campus, and can we hand him a rose so that people are like, why is he walking around with the rose? And then he can tell people why he's walking around with the rose, right? So there are different things, right? This awareness campaign, having a party, doing your parade to the polls or march to the polls, or even getting, I know that some campuses in other states will have charter buses that are like party buses, essentially for getting people out to vote. So kind of keeping those things in mind, I'm going to review these questions with you. And then what we're going to do is spend about 10 to 15 minutes in small groups, kind of thinking if you were to do some kind of early voting or election day celebration, what would you do? And then we'll have some of you guys share back. But then hopefully you can take this back and maybe enact some of these ideas. We should have enough time, a little over, oh no, I don't want to know how many days it is until the election is quick. So a few things I want you guys to think about. What are you going to call it? What is your event? A good name goes pretty far. We had Vote Fest one year. What do you hope to accomplish with this event? Do you want to get 100 people out to the polls to vote? Do you want to make sure people are able to reach the polls so they have all of the information they need to be an engaged and informed voter? And then are you celebrating election day or early voting? What day are you going to hold your event on? Some of these are super easy peasy. Where is your closest polling location? And then this one's really important for my Harris County folks. Great. In which congressional district do your students typically live in? And make sure you're providing sample ballots for as many potential locations as you can think of. Students on my campus fall into 5 different congressional districts pretty typically. We have on campus, we have next to campus, we have where our grad students live, we have where some of our lower income students live, like right, we have like all of these different congressional districts that we want to make sure our students actually have sample ballots to look at, because you can't take your phone out when you're voting. So that's like our other little tip, is always have like scrap paper and stuff out with you, because some people can write down who they want to vote for each item. If you're doing an in-person event, are there any space reservations that need to be made? If yes, who's going to make them? When do they need to be submitted by? How long will the event take? And what are your needs for the event? And then how much does it cost? There's always a little money involved, right? If you need money for your event, how are you going to get that money? How are you going to fundraise? Are volunteers needed for this event? How are you going to find volunteers? Who will be invited to this event? Who's your audience? Who are you trying to get to come out? So maybe for some of our high schoolers, you're trying to get your seniors to come out, or maybe you're trying to get parents to come out to vote. Do you need help with track service hours? For some of our orgs, they track service hours on campuses. And then what groups do you think should be involved in this event? Who should be engaged in this? And then I have a little piece at the end, because I love civic traditions, which is, can you turn this event into a tradition? So the UHG Parade for the Bulls, March for the Bulls, it's a tradition now. It's something that happens, like I know about it and I don't go to UHG. And so how do you make this a tradition for your students? And then how can other groups use maybe part of your event to be part of a different tradition that they have on campus? So we're gonna have, okay, so we're gonna do 10 minutes of you guys in small groups, I'll maybe like 5-minute turn-ons and students for you. And so get in small groups and start creating an event that you would want to plan with your group. And then from there, I'll have you guys do some share out for any groups that are pretty excited about their events. Does anybody have questions for me before we go into our small groups?
How big should this be?
No more than 5.
Go make friends.
Yeah, make friends.
Oh.
I hear the question. Yeah, we're gonna switch
Does anybody else need
Yeah, we do 5 minutes, 5 minutes too.
I'm gonna give you guys a little extra time since I feel that you're actually working on this, which makes my heart very full and happy. So we'll go for 7 more minutes, and then any groups that want to present their ideas and get feedback, you are welcome to do that. I'm not gonna force anyone to do that, but I would love to hear your ideas. Three more minutes. 3 more minutes. Okay, y'all, it is now 11:45. And you know what's glorious about this? I'm usually doing this work nationally, so then I go, okay, it's 10:45 here, 9:45 here, so I'm pretty glad I don't have to figure out time zones right now. Epically bad at it. Okay, so, which groups would like to share their ideas?
Oh, yes, I never went. Okay. You're very excited.
So we're gonna present as a group and I'm just gonna be passing the mic over. So essentially, our idea is to have an event targeted towards minorities. Our school is kind of like a magnet school for minorities, hence like our entire audience would be minorities. And essentially like our name for the event is M2M. The M2M votes, and what it stands for is minorities to majority votes. Yeah. Basically kind of like it's supposed to be an informative event where you like let these people know why it's important that their communities come out to vote, essentially because minorities have like a large number, however, they're also the least likely to come out to vote. So it's also an initiative for them to vote. Since we're kind of like high schoolers, we intended on having it in our school, like in an auditorium in a place called West Houston. And it's mostly because of how the setting is. It's really like calm, it's really like chill in there. So it's something to make them feel comfortable. What we struggled a little bit was to come up with that one person that would be like our guest of honor, like important speaker, just because like we really couldn't figure out that one person from Houston or from Texas that would move minorities to come out to vote. Just because we tend to kind of not really deem anyone important. I'll pass the mic over to other people just to talk about other things that they had to say. So our closest polling location, so we have a Houston Community College, like right next to our high school. So we were going to hold it there, since we can vote there. And when we were thinking about any like space reservations, we would look to Wujibat right here because she's like reliable and she can like do that type of stuff. So to prepare beforehand, we definitely do it like a month before just to have like everything down and to figure out everything like the setup and the designing and the logistics. And after the event, we would definitely need to like do a lot of cleanup and probably to like analyze like how the event went and how well it did. So yeah.
And as far as volunteering, we came as journalism members, so we can have them volunteer and get community hours for helping minorities vote and get the word out there. And our, what we wanted to make use of, like rather than using social media, so as for journalism members, what we've realized helped a lot of people come out to our fundraiser that we recently hosted. We realized that what helped us was the word of mouth, because sometimes we're on social media, but it's easy just to swipe, like I could just ignore the post. However, when I'm having a one-on-one conversation with you, it's easier for you to understand me. And like I said, like minorities are our focus, and what best helps minorities is when people talk to them personally. So that's what we have.
I knew how many people. I was a journalist before I did all this kind of stuff. The way I got into voting was like, I was a 17-year-old covering like school board meetings and county commissioner meetings. And I was like, yo, I really don't like this county commissioner. I want to go vote against him. And I didn't care about voting for president, but I was like, I must go vote against this county commissioner. I have to hear talk for 3 hours every 2 weeks. So I just knew. The other thing I wanted to add for y'all, 2 things. Black women have the highest win rate of any group. So embrace that power. And 2, I was thinking, I feel like if you can't think of a speaker, especially as young people, your families want to hear from you. I think there's a lot of power in having students speak to older generations and say like, this is why it matters. Like, I don't know, like, you know, you're my great grandma, you may not be around for super long. That's messed up. I shouldn't say, I had some students say something like that to me earlier today, now it lives in my head rent free. But like, seriously, like, this is why it matters as a person who is gonna be in this world for hopefully a really long time. Please vote for my future, or please participate for my future. It's not even necessarily saying who to vote for, but please participate because it's my future on the line. Okay, I think we had a group here.
Hi, my name is Matthew, and our event name is RYV Party, which RYV stands for Raise Your Voice. And what we hope to accomplish in this event is get more seniors to register, / more people to vote. And we're celebrating an early voting, and our closest polling location is West Institute, and the congressional district that we typically live in is Harris County, and this event will take place in school campus.
For any spaces or reservations, we don't really make it in. No, okay. For people who are gonna make up our flyers and things like that, we're thinking like AV club, like, you know, clubs that are part of our school, things like that. Journalism also, you know. Yeah, yearbook too. For volunteer hours also, we're thinking like we could get our own students, especially like underclassmen, to be volunteers, and like we could ask permission if that could be like volunteer hours for them, because, you know, everybody needs them.
What needs to be done before this event is decoration, setting up presentations, and table setup and registration setup. And our funds will come from school and fundraisers. And the people who will be invited to this event is the elite community and students. And the way the method we will use to promote this event is sending out emails to the elite community and social media and flyers. And the groups on campus that are will be involved in the event is journalism and yearbook, our own club. And what administrators are the district administrators, community members is one of our biology teachers, Ms. Dr. D, which is part of the AIDS committee, and other officials are security, because of course, need security everywhere that she goes to be safe and other safe as well. And this event can become tradition by sending emails on the same day every year, so that way the community can get used to receiving that email and they'll know on that day that there will be a celebration.
Do you guys have a National Honor Society?
Yeah.
I know when I was in NHS, they always make us get service hours.
Yeah, they still do.
Take advantage of it. Who else?
I'll go here and then you're next, okay? I'm pregnant and I waddle, so bear with me.
All right, so we have a very diverse little group over here, 2 college students, 1 high school student, and someone who's in the field. So we have more of a conversation, took our own individual notes of what we should keep in mind when planning for events. So for me, we didn't have a conversation of what our name would be, but if I were to pick a name, I put minorities votes. We didn't really delve into detail with that, so we kind of just moved past that. And then, so the question we went into was, where would this event take place? We all agreed it'd be a hybrid event. So we put hybrid event, just because since our event would usually be at school, whether it's the high schools, colleges, the students who are at school will be at school, attend this event. And then for the non-traditional students who may have work, who have kids, who have another life, the hybrid event would allow them to stay participant, stay involved, even in the digital manner. Okay, so how long will this event take? I'm gonna pass the mic just because we have, if you want to introduce yourself real quick and talk about your event that is coming up.
Hey everybody, my name is Oscar. I am a student at UH Clear Lake. I'm also the president of let me start over. The organization is called SciFest. It is the Society for the Advancement of Chicano, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science. And I'm planning a career development day with our university's career services. So it's not exactly a civic engagement event, although I'm working on that. But basically, I'm going to have career services come in and talk to students about how to develop their resumes, their interview skills, how to apply to graduate programs, because that's something that my organization focuses on. So, especially a lot of our members are really kind of in their first, second year of college. They're probably still in their home. Some of them are first generation, so they don't necessarily. Maybe they haven't seen the interview process before. Maybe they haven't had somebody in their family apply to grad school. So it's really important to tell kids that that's a possibility. There are resources out there, and I've had a really good experience with career services. I mean, I'm on the market right now, and I can tell you negotiating is, difficult, frustrating, but it's really important to know that if somebody doesn't want to pay you, you don't want to work with them. So just a heads up.
I think I'm going to talk about something that Oscar mentioned. He's going to try to get some civic engagement stuff into it. Guys, if someone's doing something at school or on campus, and you can weasel your way into making it be a little bit about voting, hey, we're bringing this guest speaker. Okay, can I say about signing the voter registration? We're gonna hold this celebration. Oh, cool. The celebration is during early voting. Do you guys want to start your celebration by going to vote together and then go do your celebration? There are ways that you can, like I said, make part of a voting tradition be part of something else too. And especially for groups that aren't all about voting, that is the best way to do it. We had a group on campus who had a party, and they made everyone, they didn't make it because you can't make people, but they encouraged everyone to go vote before going to a party, right? They did a little parade from their house to the polling location.
So my group, well, I'm from a community college up in Tomball, and then
The rest of my group are from the high school.
Nowhere near.
Alright, they're from high school. And so we have like kind of two different approaches to this, because our event is gonna be focused on early voting, and it's gonna be called Vote and Go. So mine will be, my event on campus will be more focused on actually promoting early voting and maybe seeing if we can get some kind of early voting activities going around, while their campus event is gonna be more like education and like informative. And so like we all have our closest polling locations. My group will have a lot of volunteers for it because we have civic engagement groups. We have a few other people from Campus Vote, like other democracy fellows on campus. We have student government, we have all the government teachers, and we have a lot of different ways to promote it, not only using all these different organizations, social media, but also word of mouth is really good. And like, I'm really close with a lot of the government teachers, I'm a political science major. And so we've had events like this before where we were able to go into their classrooms while they were teaching and be like, hey, by the way, we're having this event over in the Commons. In case anyone wants to go, it's like peak hours are from like 10 to 2. So we usually hold voter registration events during those hours too.
To go on where our name Vote and Go, we decided to go with that name because of the early voting. So like the people don't want to go to the election day, whenever it might take a long time because let's do it early.
What we hope to accomplish is basically the same thing as everyone said, help people spread the word and help guide people to the polls. Whereas centered around early voting, like was mentioned, our location is going to be the same as the group we presented over here at West Institute, because there was a voting location that did take place there. So like setting it up will be easier because we know how it works. Yeah, it's an auditorium. Reservations for the space will be needed because the building is not ours. And then our sponsor is our lovely person over there, Ms. Abraham. She teaches all the government classes, most of them in our school. So why not just put her in charge? We're gonna have a 2 months advance notice because it takes a lot of process to get things into working and the whole like documents and money.
Well, especially for students to be able to like prepare themselves for like whatever it's gonna be.
Yeah, and of course we're gonna have food because that's how you get people to come. Food.
Slow clap, that is 100% how you get people to come to test.
And then we're gonna have we wanted to have a DJ because we need music. I mean, while they're voting, of course there could be nothing, but like, just when they come in, music, and then get started, greet them, get to know, but just greet them. And yeah, our volunteers are gonna be seniors and we were thinking, and juniors. Mainly, most of the seniors will be like the ones doing the voting, but so we were like thinking getting underclassmen to help us like volunteer and greet the event and stuff.
And for them to like have that early, getting to know what voting is gonna be like and stuff.
Our audience is gonna be students, families, and their teachers. And we would like to promote our event. We're gonna use flyers, announcements, and word by mouth, of course. And our groups, we can use all the clubs in our school. Doesn't matter what they contain to.
Yes. Okay, so thank you.
So I think we have all of our speakers for the next panel here. So I'm gonna quickly wrap us up. I'm sorry if we didn't get to you. I'm gonna be honest, I'm used to working digitally when I get like maybe 2 people to volunteer and that's it. So thank you for making my day. That was great. And I think my takeaway is I want my journalism and yearbook folks to hear what our colleagues and Gov and like our college students are saying, of course. But what I really want is for my college students to listen to what the high schoolers are saying. Because I think a lot of the time where the college students are here, we kind of end up in the same little group of people where we're all talking about like very specific things. But I think these ideas are super applicable across the board. And I think that's what's so cool about this work is while you may not be able to exactly replicate what another group is doing, these ideas are phenomenal. And we can take little pieces of these ideas. And so for the March to the Polls, like we should make sure there's music there, right? Like that's a great idea. Or
free food is always a good idea. So I want to thank all of you for participating, and I'm excited to hand it over to our next speaker.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joshua Fang, or you can just call me Josh. I am a junior at Rice University studying social policy analysis with a minor in data science, and I am one of the main organizers of HRC Houston Youth Voters Conference, and outside of this, I serve as the president of Civic Review, a non-partisan civic engagement organization at Rice University. And I'm really happy that y'all have taken the time to attend this event. Thank you so much. So our next session is a civic leaders panel, and we have five panelists joining us today. And the structure of this session will be some quick introductions of the five panelists, as well as a moderated Q&A with a couple of questions that I have about panelist civic leadership journeys. And then I'll open up the floor to the audience with any additional questions. So panelists, please join me at the table. So this is the board as well.
Yeah.
We'll be using this for all okay, so I'll use this microphone now. So to start off, I'm going to give quick introductions of our five panelists. Let's go to the next slide. So first we have Sonia Torres Rodriguez, a research analyst at the Urban Institute and co-founder of Civic Tree Rights, which is the club I'm president of currently, the End of the Podcast, and the Houston Youth Voters Conference. So thank you so much, Sonia, for joining us today. And we also have Oscar Lazaro, senior at University of Houston Clear Lake, who is student advisory board member of Campus Vote Project. And we have Joshua Martin, sophomore at University of Houston main campus, director of internal relations for University of Houston for the students, congressional intern for Sheila Jackson Lee, and student government association president at the University of Houston.
Let's go.
Next, we have Annika Saitia, senior at St. Agnes Academy, a leader of the Youth Engagement Working Group for the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Sustainability in Houston, one of the leaders of the Houston Youth Climate Strike. Speaking of the Houston Youth Climate Strike, we have Gardia Bacade, senior at Belia High School, and a general coordinator for the Houston Youth Climate Strike. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining us. So to kick off our discussion, anyways, to kick off our discussion, my first question to all of you panelists is, what does civic leadership mean to you? And we can start with Sonia.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. Are y'all feeling good?
Yes.
I know, it's kind of dragging. It's the middle of the day, but I'm so excited to be here with you. It's amazing to see you here. Like Josh mentioned, I'm actually one of the co-founders of this event that started about 4 years ago in 2018. So it's amazing to see it still alive and to see all of you here. What does civic engagement mean to you? Really quickly, I would just say that to me, it's about love and hope. So we've talked a lot about the things that keep our communities down and the rights that are being infringed, but for me, that's not the reason or what civic engagement means to me. To me, it's about the love of my community and the hope that I see for the people who are in my life and what I think that we can all achieve together. So anyway, I think that that's like a joyful way to think about it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Oscar. I work with Campus Vote Project, the student advisory board. I'm also active in the environmental justice space. So to me, I think of civic engagement or civic leadership as being a bridge to people and kind of how the political process affects them and how they can influence it or be a part of it. It really means making sure that people are aware of their power and aware of the communal nature of our society, and that, you know, things aren't always for everyone, but they should be, and we can all do our part to try to make it so. So the reason I bring up environmental justice is because environmental justice is kind of how I explain some of these things to people. Who you vote for matters. What you do in your own time is important. There are public meetings on all sorts of issues that affect everyone in this room, and not everybody knows about this stuff. So it's important to just tell people what's out there and what issues are current, because you might find yourself in a neighborhood that has some issues, and you could have gone to a meeting and talked about it, but nobody told you about the meeting. So that's kind of how I think of it. Making sure people have information and making sure that they know what affects them in their communities.
Okay, hi, I'm Gargi. And to me, civic leadership is being like a person for the community and a person for the people. I think a lot of times with bigger politicians and civic like leaders, I guess, they are kind of like, looking out for their platform as well as the people. And I think that being a civic leader as a young person or just as a person in general is really looking out for what's best for your community and what's best for like the people of Houston, for example. And I think that it's just about being active and engaged in your community, in your political issues, and like the panelists before me said, spreading education and getting educated yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Anka Saitia, and I definitely agree with what my fellow panelists said. And I'd also add on that I think civic leadership is really about representing your community in different forms and whatever communities you're part of. That could be your geographical community or your racial, ethnic, cultural community, but different aspects of your identity and the communities that follow that. Really bringing those values, experiences, and skills to the table and ensuring that not only your voice is heard, but your fellow community members' voices are heard. And I think you also cannot talk about civic leadership without also talking about education and outreach and really bringing different voices to the table and ensuring that everyone is informed about issues affecting them.
Well, how's it going, everybody? First off, I want to thank you guys for having me here on this panel. I'm kind of going to go back to what kind of my previous panel said. What civic engagement means to me, it's really about making a positive impact in your community. I mean, everyone is from a different community, different groups, whether it's racial, ethnic, whatever it may be, but it's about putting the interests of your community first. There's so many things to where some people may get blindsided about the fame or the media or the press, but really what really being a civic engagement, what being a civic leader is being able to put the needs of your constituents first. So I think whenever I think about going back to how I'm SGA president at the University of Houston, everything I do, I always try to put the needs for the students first, because I think that's what's truly important. And it goes down to every position, whether it's congressional, whether it's a Houston City Councilman or councilwoman, or whether it's a state representative. It's really just about putting your constituents first, and putting the best interests of the people that you serve, making that your number one priority.
Thank you so much, panelists, for your great answers. So, one of the answers is that a civic leader should be someone who really cares about the community and people in those communities. And you're motivated to be the ones making an impact to best serve those communities. So thank you all so much for your insights. My next question to all of you is, what was the most pivotal moment in your civic leadership journey and why?
Well, thinking back to my civic leadership journey, I think the most pivotal moment is a moment to where I felt defeated. I know there was a time to where I really didn't feel like I could really make that positive impact. I didn't really think that my voice truly mattered because I felt like a lot of people ignored me. But then I'm really thankful for some of the mentorship that I've had from different leaders, such as Congresswoman Jackson Lee, District Attorney Kim All, they've been great mentors to me, and they always been able to push me up. I'll never forget a conversation I had with District Attorney Kim All, and she told me that you are powerful, you can do this, you're always going to be able to have an impact because you're truly more powerful than you think that you are. So I think that whenever I was down, I was truly picked up, and I think that kind of having that mentorship really kind of lifted me up. And I think this goes back to something that everyone in this group can do. It goes to random acts of kindness. And there's always people that can use some picking up. There's always some people that are going through different life obstacles on a daily basis.
So I think that really coming together, lifting each other up, that's what's really going to move our community forward. So, but I'm really thankful that I was picked up and that I was put down. So that was definitely my biggest obstacle.
So as Josh mentioned, I've done a lot of different environmental and climate-related work, specifically with Houston Youth Climate Strike. In early 2021, Houston Youth Climate Strike was working on a project to lobby local legislators and representatives to pass the Texas Environmental and Economic Stewardship Resolution, which is a mouthful, but it was basically this acknowledgement of the climate crisis and how different financial and economic issues played into that. So that meant a lot of lobbying, which in terms or manifested really for meeting with different legislators. And at that time it was via Zoom. And I remember a specific conversation with one representative, and she said something along the lines of, I probably would never have voted to pass this resolution had it not been young people that approached me. I think that was a super impactful moment for me because I recognize that young people have a unique voice to share and that we have a unique spot at the table. And I think that's super valuable, especially in conversations on civic leadership. And I think that also recognizes that we're future leaders and that we have to embody that role and take on different challenges right now and build up those skills right now, which is really what civic leadership is all about. So I would say that definitely ensuring that youth voice is a priority was something that was valuable for me. Hearing that from a representative was very impactful.
Like Annika mentioned, I'm also one of the general coordinators for Houston Youth Climate Strike, so a lot of my civic leadership experience has been environmental. And I think for me, the turning point was less actually talking to representatives, but it was seeing and hearing the people's stories. After Winter Storm Uri hit Houston last year, we started this initiative called like Stories from the City of Storms, where a bunch of people across Houston would like upload their videos and their climate stories. And I think hearing those stories, hearing the experiences and the devastation and destruction that was caused in these communities is really like that turning point for me that taught me and kind of showed me that, you know, it's my job as a young person to be engaged actively in the community, to be engaged actively in politics, because, you know, some people, they don't have the same access to these opportunities to be engaged in the community. And I think that since I do have access to these opportunities, it's my job to do so. And as a community member, it's my job to do as much as I can to help communities that are struggling or communities that are trying to get better.
I think I can relate to a lot of people on this panel. For me, it's been kind of a long journey. I think some of my big moments were engaging with elected officials. I think the turning point for me, or one of the big turning points, was going to Austin and going to what's called Sunset Commission. So every 7 years, agencies they come under review by a commission through the legislature. So essentially, they're deciding whether to continue the existence of an agency, right? So long story short, this agency has a lot of power in terms of, you know, permitting, environmental permitting, concrete waste, or concrete batch plants, which is actually an issue in A-Leaf. That's a long story, but there's been a lot of public comments in the A-Leaf area over concrete batch plants that are being put in right next to schools, next to parks, and the communities not always for them. And the agency in charge of approving those permits is usually pretty friendly towards the people requesting the permits. So all that to say that when I went to this commission hearing to testify, to speak on behalf of my community and the nonprofit organization that I work with, I looked at the room, I looked at the people on the committee, and nobody looked like me. I think there was one person that looked like me, and everybody who came from Houston, from A-Leaf, from the 5th Ward to talk about this agency was Black, was brown, a lot of different people of color. And then you look at all the people making the decisions, and they look nothing like the people who are being affected by these decisions. So that's something that we should all think about as we think about civic engagement. There are a lot of decisions being made about our communities that aren't being made within our communities. And this is across legislatures. Texas is a really unique example because I think we just crossed the threshold for, I think, almost 50% Hispanic population. And a lot of the people on the committees that make decisions, whether it's appropriations or whether it's, just your senator, state elections matter, by the way. I have been in office for a long time and they're predominantly older white males. I know my senator's been in office for, I think, 40 plus years. So the person who represents me has been in office for over 4 decades. I mean, before the internet. So it's something to think about because a lot of the people in power are afraid of young people voting. And they're afraid of young people running for office and winning because they've had nice, cushy jobs making decisions for decades. So just think about that. That was a big turning point for me. I thought this needs to change. We can't have my neighborhood looking the way they do because the people making the decisions don't know anything about it. So that's my story.
And I love it. I love it. I just want to say I'm so grateful to be on the panel with all of you. The Houston youth climate stuff is like legit. I'm so honored and like excited to be with y'all. University of Houston in the house. Oscar, your story is amazing. So I just want to say that the pivotal moments for me has actually been engaging with people like this and with people like you. So I think for me, pivotal moments included recognizing that, yes, voting is a part of it, but honestly, it's a small part of it because the reality is that it's not that we need to make our voices heard. It's not that we need to have our voices given to us. It's that we've been screaming and yelling for decades and no one listens to us, right? So it's the people without the ears who are the problem, not the people who have the voices and who have been saying things for a while. So I think a pivotal moment for me was thinking about when we were co-founding Civic Community Rights, when we co-founded the Houston Youth Voters Conference, thinking about what are the different perspectives that we know people in Houston already have, and how can we bring them together so that we can build power together. Y'all remember Greg earlier today, right? Yeah, right? Talking about like, what is our role in shaping the future of our communities? So for me, when we started planning that process, it's when we realized, it didn't matter that we had, and we were really proud of this, but we registered over 450 people on the Rice campus the first year that we got co-founded. Like, that's a huge number. And then we were like, and then what? Right? So I think for me, it was realizing that spaces like this, the Houston Youth Voters Conference and other places are places where we can talk about climate, we can talk about housing, we can talk about how our communities are living day to day and making sure that they're engaged and that they can be reached. So I guess the last thing I want to say is that through the work with the Houston Youth Voters Conference, I engaged with high school students. And I remember we were having a public speaking sort of session, helping people think about, do you want to start your own podcast? Do you want to be doing more on social media? Do you want to do speeches? Do you want to give public comment at the city of Houston or in your own school district? What do you want to do? And these kids, it was incredible. Freshmen and sophomores telling me about wanting to have walkouts at their school against gun violence and wanting to have walkouts at their school against DACA and immigrant rights. And I was like, this is the type of vision that I sometimes don't even see at a college level, right? So I was just so inspired by that drive, that vision, and I'm so inspired to be here with you. And again, the pivotal moment being, we can do more than just vote. We are more than that, and we owe it to ourselves and our communities to think about not just voting, but what happens after we've gone to the ballot box? What are we fighting for? And what's giving us hope for the future?
Thank you so much, Melissa. Those are great answers. It's really inspiring to hear your stories and how you've been able to reflect on those critical moments in your life to kind of like make a big change and make a difference as a civic leader. And it sounds like all of you identified something that you saw that should be changed, and you found a way to feel empowered to be the person making that change. So it's really inspiring to hear your stories. Thank you so much. My last prepared question for you is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to the HYVC participants in front of you who want to grow their civic leadership skills?
answer? Do you want to go first? Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay, it's kind of a two-part. One, go to an agency website, find out what an agency is, go to the website and see how much information you can actually find, because it's not easy. Number two, go to a public meeting. That's going to be its own challenge. Find out where there's a public meeting, what it's about, what it is. You might not find out until it's over. So try going to a public meeting and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn a lot about your community, learn about the issues that people face, people who work a lot, take time out of their day to go to public meetings, largely to be going sometimes. So it's just really interesting to see. It's really formative. It'll change your mind about a lot of things. So if you're not engaged already, go to a public meeting.
I would say, obviously, the first thing is to vote. Plan on voting if you aren't of the age. Get registered to vote. Tell your friends, your family who can vote to vote. Just vote. Get your voice out there. That's the first thing you can do to really have your voice heard by the politicians. I'd say the second really big thing that is so important is to talk to people within your community and to talk to people within the larger Houston community. And this can mean researching different local groups or organizations that are holding meetings like this one or other sessions or informational meetings, just showing up and hearing about the issues that your community and less fortunate communities are dealing with, actually listening and seeing how you can plug in, seeing how you can help, seeing how you can join projects, just kind of educating yourself on different issues within your community and learning more about the stories and the unique perspectives that people within your community and outside of your community have, and how you can use these perspectives to better your community.
No, definitely echo what Brody said, and it's super important, just super critical to join a group of people and to collaborate with those around you. And I often find that joining an organization or joining an established group or starting your own group on your school campus or whatever that may look like is super important because really it's all about changing numbers. If you're working with people, you can use their strengths and play to their strengths and pull in their energy and pull in their skills. And I think that's super valuable. And also I would say that everybody kind of has their own different skill set and different experiences. And I think those are super valuable. And when you bring different experiences and skills to the table, you're able to kind of form a diverse group of people and really have diverse voices. So I'd say that I'm sure all of you have different talents and skills, and I would say to use that different niche and plug into different organizations in different ways. I know that a lot of people in Houston Climate Strike are really interested in art, so they've used art as a tool to create change. They've done a lot of what's called artivism type things, really just combining their artwork and their activism. I know a lot of people who use storytelling and journalism as a way to make change. So I think you can really use whatever niche you already plugged into and use that as a method and as a vehicle, I guess, of being a civic leader.
Well, the first piece of advice I would give is just to get involved. And there's numerous ways to do that. I mean, there's like kind of how my fellow panelists said, there's numerous great organizations within our area, within your community, so you can easily get involved. Secondly, I think that you need to do what you can to hold your elected representatives accountable. Lots of the time, elected representatives can seem like larger than life figures, but traditionally, they're actually easier to reach than you actually think. I know lots of them have their offices, lots of them have different ways to contact them, lots of them are on social media, they read it lots, I know lots of people, they read their social media, they read their mail, so I would say hold your elected representatives accountable, and kind of the main thing is to get out and vote, and not just get out and vote, but encourage other people to get out there and vote as well. Don't just go out there and vote yourself, go and bring 10 friends to go vote with you. Go and get those 10 friends to get other 10 friends to go and vote, because truly that's what's going to be the outcome, and that's what's going to move our country forward as a whole. You need to go and get your people, get them to vote, get them to register, make sure you educate yourself on these different issues. I think that one thing that we've really done a great job at the University of Houston is we're really trying to emphasize issues on what's important to people, what's on their mind, listening to them.
that's what's truly going to make a difference, and I think that's going to be kind of the main piece, and kind of something I want everyone to take away.
Thanks, y'all. I needed to think on that. It was a little bit too deep of a question to be going first, but my biggest piece of advice is know your story, right? I think if you don't know who you are and what you love and who you love, it's very difficult to get motivated about anything, including voting. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. We heard Mr. Saldivar earlier today, right? Did y'all love that speech? Yeah, I did too. And I related actually a lot to the things that he was saying. And my first voting experience was very similar to his. I walked into a voting poll booth with my mom, who doesn't speak English that well, and who's an amazing person, a literate person who has important ideas to share. And the person who was taking us to the ballot box just pressed on English and basically validated her vote. So it's those types of stories that help me think about, motivate me. You know, when I get tired, when I get frustrated, like, how do I stay motivated to keep doing whatever it is? And again, I really want you to encourage to think about voting is a means to an end, right? Like, our power does not end at the ballot box. These people don't give us our power. We have our power. We own our power, and we get to shape our communities in the way that we want. So the last thing I want you to think about also is this concept. Have you all heard of the term mutual aid before? A little bit. So that's part of my story, right? Is that I'm originally from Puerto Rico. If you haven't heard, a huge hurricane just hit a bunch of my family. They were without power and water. And a big moment for me in 2018 was when Hurricane Harvey and Maria happened basically within 2 weeks of each other. That was huge for me. Seeing both of my communities, whom I really cared about, struggle with huge things, but not just the hurricane, but then the man-made disaster that is, Fluffy, I love it. Man-made disaster that is like a lot of our politics. So I think once you know your story, then you want to know, how can I help people learn their stories also and be able to tell them? So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Mutual aid is one way that you can help other people when they have their moment of need and organize for them. So that would be my piece of advice.
So thank you so much, Bilal. Well, those great answers. So it sounds like we have a lot of ideas in terms of like how you can get involved and make an impact. But in essence, it sounds like you should really reflect on what you care about and educate yourself on what opportunities are out there to get involved, and then just go ahead and take action. And one of the ways you can do that is by voting. So we're about to head out to lunch, but before that, I think we can probably let an audience member ask a question. If you have follow-up questions, maybe you can ask the panelists during lunch. But if anybody has a question right now and would like to ask the panelists, can you please raise your hand and I'll bring you the microphone. See them what you get this question.
Hi, my name is Rajiva, and my question is directed towards Foster. So basically, earlier on, you mentioned something about concrete backtracks in Daly. I'd like to mention, like, a lot of the high schoolers here are from Daly, and you mentioned how, like, it affects us. So can you please expand that, because I don't believe we're aware of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So this was also a formative experience. Earlier this year, there was a concrete batch plant applying for a permit. I think it's since been revoked. Usually those permits are approved almost 100%. I think Ely has one of the highest concentration of these batch plants in its neighborhood. And the other thing is, growing up in the neighborhood, you don't know what's not normal. So I know that growing up in Houston, it's not normal to have so much industry right next to where you live. It's a huge problem. And earlier this year, there was a public meeting on that permit. Turns out that public meeting was actually held after the permit was basically approved. It wasn't really like the public comment that people showed up for wasn't going to have an impact, which was really unfortunate. And it was a disservice to the community, but a lot of people from ALE actually went to that meeting, gave the applicant a really hard time, which was amazing to see. And one of the people who impacted me the most that I saw speak at that meeting was actually a young man with a civic club. so from the neighborhood, could have been any older than maybe 20, 22. And he spoke very eloquently about the concentration of batch plants, the concrete batch plants in the youth area. There's a lot. So I would look into them. I would try to do just a simple Google search. Maybe even look at your local rep. I think the representative that was at that meeting, that actually requested that meeting, was Armando Wale. So the thing about elected officials is when you need somebody to help you, when you need somebody to advocate for your community, when you need somebody to request a public meeting for a proceeding that usually just goes by unnoticed, that's who you need to call. The only reason this meeting happened was because of Armando Wale. So he requested the meeting, he championed that. Same thing with Ms. Sheila Jackson-Lee. She has helped us a lot in the Fifth Ward area with the, I don't know if you're all aware, but there's a huge situation there with an old railroad treatment facility. And Ms. Sheila Jackson-Lee has helped us a lot by getting attention to that situation, having public meetings, engaging the responsible parties. It's a site that's basically heavily polluted. It's associated with a cancer cluster in the Fifth Ward area. So it's things like this. Concrete batch plants they put off a lot of particulate matter pollution. They're really bad for air quality. They're basically horrible for your health. Because particulate matter can affect your heart, your liver, your lungs. There's a lot of negative health consequences to living in these areas. And that's without getting into all the petrochemical facilities in Houston. So the agency meetings for permits like these to be approved are public meetings that a lot of people don't know about, because the way that agencies announce public meetings is by putting them in the newspaper. That's it. You wouldn't know. They put them, I think there's like a link buried somewhere in their website for all these public meetings. They don't tell you about them. They don't send you a letter. They put them in the newspapers. Who's read a newspaper in the past month? Okay. Do you know where to look for public meetings? That's great. That's great. But ALEAF has done a really good job. I think y'all should look into the civic organizations in your community, because ALEAF made us proud. ALEAF at the Sunset meeting. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's for y'all. So at the TCEQ Sunset meeting that I mentioned earlier, there were buses of people from ALEAF talking to the agency, giving their comments. There were people speaking in Spanish about how much of a problem these concrete batch plants are. And that's the kind of thing that I think we're all talking about, is getting engaged with your community, talking to the civic organizations, the nonprofits, anybody who's engaged in this prolonged fight with the system, essentially. So just look for those. If you go to a public meeting, I promise you, you'll find, well, I don't know about the elected officials, they're not always there. But you'll find nonprofits that need help. You'll find people in the community who are passionate about what they're dealing with. And you'll find a lot of different perspectives. So it's not the most accessible information, so I don't have a lot of reassurance there, but there are a lot of people in ALEAF dealing with this problem. There are different communities across Houston dealing with environmental justice issues. And if that's something you care about, I would definitely try to find people who are engaged in that and volunteer.
Thank you for that good question. So now we're going to go ahead and get lunch. So before we go, I just wanted to remind you that we will be returning here in the